Before we get started on Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Good morning, beautiful people, on this glorious Saturday. Sorry, all the days just intertwine, so I don't know what day it is. I just know it's a day. What day? What kind of day? You tell me. Okay, we are continuing on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Satipatthanas. The second most important meditation text in Buddhism. So we are on the 3rd foundation of mindfulness of mind, and we are on the last exercise of this foundation, exercise 15, which is the exercise on loving kindness or metta meditation. And then we'll finally move on to the last foundation of mindfulness, the objects of mind, which will be very extensive and long. So the mindfulness of body and objects of mind, or the longest, have the most exercises. But, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse this morning. In our last class, we covered exercise 14, which is about identifying anger. So we went through some exercises and some guidance on how we observe and identify and work with our anger. And this exercise kind of acts as an antidote to that anger that arises. And so metta meditation is essentially the way out, or the way to discover our anger, and to see it for what it really is, and to eradicate that anger. And so I'll read the exercise from the sutra, from the discourse that the Buddha gave, and then I'll go into my commentary. Man, can't see anymore. Old. So exercise 15 is on metta meditation. The exercise goes, when anger is not present in him, he is aware, anger is not present in me. When already arisen anger is abandoned, he is aware of it. When anger already abandoned will not arise again in the future, he is aware of it. When his mind is not attached, he is aware, my mind is not attached. When his mind is not hating, he is aware, my mind is not hating. This, of course, follows all the other exercises that we've covered, that whatever feeling or emotion or thought arises, we are aware of it as it's arising. And so we'll constantly hear throughout this discourse or these classes that when we are mindful observing the body, we observe the body in the body, the feeling in the feeling, the mind in the mind, the objects of mind in the objects of mind. Meaning that as things arise and occur, we are aware of it as it's happening. Not afterward, not tomorrow, not a year later, not 5 decades, not on our deathbed, but right now, right? Because if we are aware of what is happening in our mind as it's happening, we become more observant, more aware of the situation. We have more delicacy into how we're able to handle and react to the situation, right? Because unfortunately, we are reactionary beings. We're not contemplative beings. And so when something happens, whether good or bad or neutral, we react according to our past, according to our state of mind in that moment. So if we're in a heated argument, right, our mind is chaotic, our body feels chaotic. And so when someone's yelling at us, our habitual reaction is to yell back. But as meditators, as observers of our mind, we know unwholesome way does nothing, has no benefit to ourselves or to others. If anything, it does actually, not if anything, what it's actually doing is creating more harm, right? And then as we start to continue on that harmful path, we continue to think more unwholesome negative things, we continue to say more unwholesome negative things, and we do more unwholesome negative things, the only thing happening next is regrets, sadness, chaos, jealousy. The list goes on and on and on, right? And so for this exercise, right, the loving kindness meditation that is very well established in Buddhist practice, right? I hope, I don't know. Have we all heard of metta meditation? Yes? Loving kindness meditation? All right, good. So this is essentially just a continuation on that. What it's also doing is adding the component of compassion to this meditation. And so love and compassion kind of in the same method of meditation that we're about to go over. So this entire exercise 15, is to develop that mind of love and compassion. And so we'll see, I didn't write it down, but you'll hear me say throughout this class, loving compassion, meaning loving kindness. Loving kindness in Sanskrit is metta, in Pali it's metta, in Sanskrit it's maitri. I'm gonna go with metta, it's the easier pronunciation for loving kindness. And then compassion is karuna. And so I'm gonna stick with love and compassion versus metta and karuna because easier for all of us, yes? Okay. So love, loving kindness, metta, that is the mind that is intent on bringing peace, joy, and happiness to others. And compassion is the mind intent on reducing the suffering in others. Okay? So one is seeing, or one is the intention of wanting peace and joy and happiness for all people, for all other beings, including ourselves. And compassion is the awareness that we do not want them to suffer. And we'll hear, I hope that throughout your journey of whether it's practicing Buddhism in general or meditation that we have heard or will hear, or know of this field of consciousness that we have, right? And in this field of consciousness, there are all these seeds that we have sown throughout our entire lives. All these seeds that are still buried from past lives or past events or experiences, right? And so we have the capability of watering these seeds. And some of these seeds include love and compassion that we all have, right? Regardless of who you are, even these murderers and these terrible people out there have these seeds of love and compassion. Clearly, they're not watering it, but they do have it, right? But metta, or loving kindness and compassion, aren't the kinds of love that try to possess or appropriate, right? They don't try to dictate and bring about suffering for ourselves or for others that we love. But instead, loving kindness and compassion is the kind of unconditional love that doesn't expect anything in return, right? This is the kind of unconditional love that we should harbor, develop. That's a better word, develop. But the essence of loving compassion, loving kindness and compassion, is understanding, right? That is the foundation of what love and compassion is understanding. Because why do we hate? Why is there terrible things going on in the world? People fighting each other, people disagreeing, arguing, doing this and doing that? It's because they don't understand. Why do you want this? I don't want you to want that. Well, you don't know because you don't know why they want that. And because you don't want them to want that, you're the one suffering. So it's the lack of understanding, which is what do we call that in Buddhism? Ignorance. Ignorance literally means in Buddhism, it doesn't mean stupidity on the mundane level. It just means not knowing, not seeing clearly, not seeing things for what they are. So as we learn to develop our loving compassion, right, and we start to truly see that understanding, then we have the ability to recognize that suffering in others. But we have to be kind of in touch with their suffering, both physically, mentally, or not mentally, sorry, physically, backtrack and read my notes. We have to be in touch with the physical, material, and psychological suffering of others, right? To do so, we all hear the term of putting ourselves in the other person's shoes, right? That's essentially what we kind of have to do. And I'm not sure if it's a Chinese saying or a Vietnamese saying, but one of the two, there's a saying, instead of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, they say, put yourself inside the skin of the other, which to me sounds more terrifying. But essentially that's what it means, is to go inside that person, right? To kind of envision ourselves in their body and envision ourselves feeling what they're feeling and trying to experience their mental formations that is causing their suffering. But on the kind of downfall part of that is a shallow observation of that. A shallow observation of that won't really help us in that suffering. Because we can easily say, yeah, they look like they're having a hard time. Oh, they look like they're struggling. Oh, they look like they need some help. Right? This is a very shallow observation of suffering. It doesn't really help us understand why they're suffering, or help us understand that they are truly suffering. So in the Satipatthana Sutra, the four foundations of mindfulness discourse, right, we're taught to be one with the object of observation. So again, we observe body in the body, mind in the mind, or body in the body, feelings in the feelings, mind in the mind, or the mental formations in the mental formations. That way, when we're in contact with the suffering of other people, then a feeling of compassion will naturally arise. It'll naturally be born within us, right? Almost immediately. Because compassion literally means to suffer with the other. So in order to see that, or in order to kind of realize that and recognize that, is why we meditate on loving compassion, or loving kindness and compassion. Because if we are able to sit in meditation and follow our breathing and observe someone mindfully, right, and be in contact with their suffering, then that energy of loving kindness and compassion that we're trying to develop will naturally arise within us. And then that physical and psychological suffering that they're having will be clear to us, and can see clearly their suffering, and can be mindfully observant of that suffering. So when the mind of compassion arises, we have to find ways to express it. We have to find ways to nourish it. We have to find ways to be able to say, or to be in true contact with that compassion. So when we come into contact with the other person, right, our thoughts and actions should express that mind of compassion. Basically, practice what you preach. Because even if that person says or does things that are not easy to accept, we still have to apply our mind of compassion to that situation. So if we practice in this way until we see clearly that our love is not contingent upon the other person apologizing or being lovable, right? Then we can be sure that our mind of compassion is true and authentic. And so the first part of this exercise is the meditation on the compassion part. And both meditation on compassion and loving kindness are kind of similar, right? So we'll start off with the compassion part. So the way we practice meditation on compassion for someone is to start with someone that we know is suffering, okay? That's undergoing physical suffering, or psychological suffering, or even material suffering, right? Someone that may be unhealthy, weak, or they easily become ill. People that are poor or oppressed, right, or have no protection. This is the type of suffering that's easy to see, unfortunately, in the world, right? And so if we're able to observe it deeply, either during our sitting meditation or even when we're or even when we're engaging with that person, right? We have to be able to observe that until the mind of compassion arises and the substance of the mind of compassion completely penetrates into our being. We know this person's suffering. We know that we want to ease the pain of the suffering of this person, right? It's something that is it's a good word I'm looking for. It's easily observable, right? When it arises, we know that this is a true feeling, right? This isn't just a passive feeling of, oh, I want to help. This is a true active feeling of this person's suffering. I truly do want to ease their suffering, right? Then, when that feeling arises, then the mind of compassion will envelop the object of our meditation, right? The object of meditation in this sense is the person that we're bringing into our mind, right? And if we observe deeply in this way, then the mind of compassion will naturally be transformed into action, right? Now it goes from, oh, I want to help this person, to I'm actually going to help this person, right? We won't have to simply say, oh, I love her very much. But instead, we can observe that I must do something in order to help her suffer less. Because unfortunately, most people are passive. Oh, they're suffering. That's it. Oh, something happened in the world. That's it. Thoughts and prayers as I roll my eyes. Right? So the mind of compassion becomes truly present in us when it has the capacity to remove suffering. After that, after we've practiced some time in the kind of the larger, well-known suffering, then we can start to practice with more subtle forms of suffering. Because sometimes the other person that is suffering doesn't seem to be suffering, right? Not everybody carries their suffering as a mask or as a bag or something that's seeable, viewable. Visible. Thank you. Please hold. I have to reset my head, my brain. Visible. Thank you. So we may not know that they're suffering, right? Even within ourselves, we often hide our suffering. We put on this mask as we leave the house or go to work or go to school or meet with friends. We put on this mask that everything's okay. Nothing's wrong with me. I'm the one that needs to help people. I'm not the one that needs to be helped. I'm guilty of that too. At the same time, it's kind of my job. But everyone suffers in some way, shape, or form, right? Visible or not visible, subtle or unsubtle. So, because even the wealthy suffer, right? Even someone who has everything they want in life still suffer. Wanting more is suffering. Wanting less is suffering. Not wanting anything at all is still suffering. So who wins? Where's the end game here? So then we have to remind ourselves that the person who made us suffering is undoubtedly suffering too. But how often do we say, this person who's yelling at me, this person who's cussing me out, this person who's trying to insult me, put me down, how often do we actually stop and think and tell ourselves, this person's suffering, this person's going through something? But instead, our little egotistical mind is like, how dare they yell at me? Who do they think they are? Why are they yelling at me? Why are they arguing with me? What's their problem? Someone woke up in the wrong side of the bed. Someone needs an extra 10th cup of coffee, whatever it may be, right? But all we have to do is just sit and meditate, follow our breath, right? We don't have to sit and interrogate them, ask them all these questions as to why they're suffering. Because truly we don't need an exact answer. All you need is the recognition that they are suffering as well. Right? And sometimes it's an obvious situation. Sometimes we know, or it's obvious as to why they're suffering. Maybe we know that they lost their job, lost their house, just got divorced, someone passed away, right? Sometimes it's these type of situations that we know is what is causing them to suffer, right? And so depending on the type of person you are, you may give some leeway as to, all right, allow this suffering to cause me some suffering, right? Because something's going on with you and you don't know how to take care of it. But then keep that in mind too. As a meditator, if you truly are trying to develop a meditation practice and develop this lifestyle of being at peace and calm and be able to see things as they truly are, then it's also your job to recognize that most people don't know how to control themselves, don't know how to observe their mind, don't know how to observe the objects of mind, don't know how to observe or recognize suffering, right? And in some cases, when we're doing this meditate, when we're looking deeply into the suffering of others, one of the as an example, we may be able to discover that the misery that is causing their suffering is because of the lack of skill of their parents raising them, right? Looking more deeply, then we can say, well, but their parents have been victims of their parents, right? So the suffering has been transmitted from generation to generation. So it's been reborn in this person that's causing suffering. And if we can see that, then we'll no longer blame them for the suffering that they're causing us. Because in a way, we can accept that they too are victims of the suffering. So of course, not all the cases, right? We can't blame everyone's parents for their suffering and stupidity. But in some cases, that's the case, right? Depending on the environment and the place and time that you are in. So again, to look deeply, we have to understand. To look deeply is to understand. And once we understand, then it becomes easy to embrace the other person's suffering through our mind of compassion. It's easier to accept that this person is suffering and what they're doing, saying, and thinking is causing suffering to themselves and to others, and we're not going to use that against them. So that's usually the ammunition that we use. Oh, you're causing me suffering, I'm going to cause you suffering. We're using them as an excuse to validate the suffering that we want to cause them. Kind of like when our parents would be like, oh, if your friend jumped off a cliff, are you going to jump off with them? Whatever stupid saying is. It's one of those situations. But as we continue to practice and develop our meditation and develop the quicker awareness of suffering, then be able to recognize the cause of suffering in others becomes a type of achievement for us. Right? It becomes kind of a gift of our meditation because of our observation. And because of our deep observation, then we know that that person is suffering. We know that they're suffering. Instead of saying, oh, they're just angry, or they're just pissed off, or they're just a bad person, or they're having a bad day. Right? All these are superficial things that we all go through. The main root of all this is suffering. And that's our job to acknowledge that this is suffering. This isn't just a bad day. This isn't just a person having a temper tantrum or missed their cup of coffee, right? Or spilled their cup of coffee. Because that person may think that their suffering will be lessened if they cause us to suffer, right? This is why people often continue on arguing with you or trying to insult you or just yelling back, right? There's just this continued chaos because they think that if I yell it out, if I punch a hole in the wall, if I chop things up or throw things or break things, then all this is going to make me feel better. Sure, momentarily, maybe, the suffering still exists. Still there. Punching a hole in the wall doesn't get rid of the suffering. Yelling at your significant other, your children, your parents, your friends, neighbors, random people, that isn't really the suffering. It only makes you look bad. Right? And then others are going to be like, this person's crazy. Why are they yelling at us? Why are they punching holes in walls? Why are they throwing things out the window? But once we're able to get in touch with their suffering, then our enmity and our bitterness toward them will start to vanish, right? And we'll want their suffering to be less. Because we can acknowledge this person's deeply suffering, right? We know that they're suffering. So now we want to attempt to help them lessen that suffering, regardless of whether we think they deserve it or not, right? Because oftentimes, especially people that we know or see out in the world, on TV or whatever, doing terrible things or whatever it may be, right? People will wish for ill intentions, unwholesome acts to be happening, right? That's not beneficial. How's that beneficial? It's never helpful to want other beings to suffer. Because all you're doing is causing yourself to suffer. There's a saying that the spring water of the compassionate mind begins to flow, and we ourselves are the first to be cleansed by it. We feel cool and light and can smile. This is a Zen saying, usually. And it's referring to that we don't need two people to reconcile an argument, right? Because we think that, oh, if two people are arguing, then there needs to be reconciliation between the both of us, right? It's how arguments get resolved. But if we look deeply, then we become reconciled with ourselves. And for us, the problem no longer exists. Because when someone's arguing and there's an argument happening, what is the essence of this argument? For the most part, because two people have different opinions, right? Oh, I'm right. No, you're not. I'm right. And it just goes on and on and on. Well, in the grand scheme of things, none of you are right. Because if you were to sit there and say, this is the right thing to do, or this is the right way, or this is more correct, or this is wrong, or that's wrong, if you dissect that, that's simply just your opinion. That's simply just your belief, your perception, your mental formation. There's no reality in that mind state, right? And so you can't be right. You can't be wrong. The two people can be right, can be wrong, right? The example I give all the time is if we all go outside and look at the clouds, and we're like, all right, what do y'all see? Well, I'm going to see a cat or a dog. Quang Hin's going to see cats for sure. And somebody else is going to be other things, right? So if we all see something different from the same cloud, then who's right? Who's wrong? There can't be anyone that's right or wrong. But if we instead acknowledge that we have the capacity to be wrong, that the argument or whatever is happening in this temper tantrum between these two people is what it is, right? And you can accept that it is what it is. I could be right, I could be wrong. It doesn't matter. Then you've resolved the issue. There's no issue that needs to be resolved. It's already resolved within you. Because all our problems, all our suffering is inherently ours. We are the causes of those sufferings. Nothing can ever cause you to suffer. I mean, unless I throw something at you, right? And yes. But that's just one little part of suffering. The true part of suffering is your reaction toward me throwing something at you. Because what's going to happen? If I throw this bowl, which is made out of copper or something, it's going to hurt, right? So your first reaction is, this hurts. Then your immediate second reaction is, why did you throw this at me? How dare you throw this at me? Right? You start to get angry instead. You start to get resentful. Just why this random monk threw a bowl at me? Right? And so our suffering doesn't come from the people or the things or the places, because they themselves cannot do anything to you. It is our reactions to those situations that cause suffering. Right? And so if we're observant enough of our own mind and aware enough of our own mind and mindful enough of our own mind, then immediately whatever happens, we can see it for what it is and go beyond our feelings and emotions and perceptions and mental formations about these things. And we can see it for what it is. Eradicate that ignorance that we hold on to every single thing that we have in life. Let it go and just accept it for what it is. So when I throw this bowl at you, the acceptance of what it is pain. That's it. That is all that is happening. Because every single thing you say after that is made up, is your own opinion, your own feeling, your own emotion. It could be right and it could be wrong. But because it has the potential of being either right or wrong or neutral, it cannot be correct. The other example I give is when we're meditating. We're sitting in meditation and all of a sudden the door opens and someone walks in. Maybe someone's stomping, right? You can hear their footsteps. Maybe someone sits down and moves the cushion around or the chair around, right? Or making all this noise. And you're sitting there in meditation, you're just like, who is this person? Why are they disturbing? Why are they so loud? Why are they late? Right? You start to make up all these stories about who, when, why, and if, and all this other chaos, right? You make up a whole movie, you make up a whole scenario in your mind for the simple fact that someone opened the door and made some noise. All that is suffering. All that extra baggage that you just created, all that is false because you have no idea who it is. You have no idea why they're late. You have no idea why they're making any noise. All that information that you're feeding yourself is false. It's not reality. So the true reality of the fact is that the door opened and a noise was made. So it's all you need to be mindful of is door or noise. That's the label that you give to yourself. That's reality, not all the extra fluff and stuff that you created. But we do that for everything in life. Every time we see a car accident, every time every time we people watch, right? Or listen to or watch TV or movies or listen to people randomly or friends, whatever it is, right? Every time there's a thought in the mind of whatever situation you're in is fiction. Unless you're seeing it for what it is. Car accident, people, talking, cloudy day, hot, cold, breezy, right? Observe things as for what they are, not for how you feel, how you see, how you perceive. Because all that could be wrong. Okay, I'm way off topic. I don't know where I was. So in the sutra, or in this discourse, the Buddha teaches that during our meditation, then we can send this mind of love and compassion into the four directions and embrace all living beings. But he also cautions we have to be careful not to think that the meditations of love and compassion consist of just sitting still, imagining that our mind of love and compassion will spread out into the world or into space like waves of sound or light, right? Because we know waves and sound of light scientifically can penetrate a lot of things. But so does our love and compassion can penetrate. But if our love and compassion are only a kind of imagining, right? For example, that let's say we imagine a clear white cloud that's simply just expanding and covering the whole world, but not doing anything, right? Then it's useless. Because a true cloud produces rain. In Buddhism, we have the saying of the Dharma, we have the saying of the Dharma rain, the rain of Dharma. The rain of Dharma penetrates all things and beings. It means it can help and touch all things, regardless of size and location or whatever it may be, right? Like in the Lotus Sutra, in chapter 6, I think, on medicinal herbs, the parable in that chapter is of this Dharma rain. How this Dharma rain, representing the path to liberation, right, penetrates all different types of plants, big trees, middle trees, small trees, right, little bush plants and grass and the weeds and all the different shapes, sizes, and colors of plants. They all get saturated with water. And they all take in as much water as they need, right? Because they know a big tree requires more water. Small little plants require a little bit of water, right? And so it's only in the midst of our daily lives, right, in our everyday life, in our actual contact with people, including those that are in the object of including those that are the objects of our meditation, that we know whether or not our mind of love and compassion is really present and whether it's stable. Because if love and compassion are real, then it'll be evident in our daily lives, in the way we talk to people, and the way we act in the world, right? You don't have to go out and say, oh, I practice loving kindness meditation, or I practice being compassionate, or I practice developing my love and compassion. You don't have to announce these things, right? You just do it. You just are. And we don't have to be anything or anyone special to realize love and compassion, right? Because one word, one action, or even one thought can reduce anyone's suffering and hopefully lessen that suffering and bring them some joy. Because one word can bring comfort, confidence. It can destroy doubt. It can help someone avoid making a mistake, right? It can reconcile a conflict even. It can open up the door and the path to liberation. Or show them how to succeed on the path and how to be happy on the path, right? Because one action can save someone's life, right? It can help them take advantage of a rare opportunity. And one thought can do the same, because all thoughts lead to speech and action. And because understanding is the very foundation of love and compassion, then the words and actions caused by love and compassion will be ones that are helpful. Because if we want to help somebody, then we know how to avoid the kind of love that does harm instead of good. You must always remember that love is none other than understanding. During our retreat a couple weekends ago, I spoke on a little bit on love and what we define as true love, right? And to me, this is my own opinion, true love in the sense of true romantic love doesn't really exist. Because if you think of, especially romantic love is you only love your partner because of very specific circumstances and situations or characteristics of that person, right? But if that person did not have any of those characteristics that you love, then where is the love? Or if this person changes over time, they are no longer that same person. They no longer have those same characteristics, those same qualities that you fell in love with, because they've changed over time, then where's the love? How's that true love? How can you sit there and say, oh, I'm going to love you forever. I'm going to love you until the end of time. But then they change who they are, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. You're not the person you used to be. How many times have we heard that dumb excuse? Right? So if your love is contingent based on qualities, specific qualities and characteristics, then it can be true love. It can be unconditional. True unconditional love is being able to love someone without the expectation of a return. Because you're like, oh, I'm going to love you as long as, right? As long as you treat me good, I'm going to love you. As long as you cook for me, I'm going to love you. As long as you clean the house, I'm going to love you. Right? Then what happens when they don't cook? They miss the meal. What happens if they got so busy they didn't clean the house? Then what? Where is this love that you just promised them? Anyway. Oh, okay, I need to hurry up. So our meditation today is on meditation. And so we're going to practice this meditation on love and compassion. And there are several sutras, actually, discourses on loving kindness. The most notable one is the Sutra on Loving Kindness. And it has a type of formula that we use to meditate on loving kindness and compassion. And the one thing we have to also remember is when we do practice loving kindness and compassion, especially when we're trying to develop that, you'll see, at least, because there's several parts of this formula. I just put the very first one. But the very first one is mentioning you yourself. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May my mind be at ease. Because unless you can help yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to help others. There is no way you can help others. Because if you can't even discover your own causes of suffering, if you can't even see your own defilements and your own hindrances and roadblocks, then it's going to be difficult to try to see that in others and help them through it. Because unless you've gone through it and experienced it and realized it and overcome it, then you have no instruction to give others to do the same. Right? You can't train someone to do surgery unless you're a surgeon. You can't train someone to do checks and balances unless you're an accountant or something or someone, right? Like, you have to know your stuff in order to teach it. And so that's why when we meditate, and when we do a meditation on loving kindness and compassion, we always start with ourselves, because we have to be able to develop that love and compassion for ourselves first. We have to be able to love ourselves first. We have to be able to know the causes of our own suffering first. And so when we meditate, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be at ease, or may I be safe, may my mind be at ease, right? And so then the next set of the formula is to meditate on someone that is close to you, loved one, either a parent or significant other or whomever, and you follow the same formula. May they be happy, right? If you want to add their name in there to be more specific, you can do that as well. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be safe. May their mind be at ease. And you continue meditating this way for a while. And then you move on to someone that's a little bit more more what? Like a stranger, right? Someone that's an acquaintance, right? A neighbor or coworker, someone just you're like, I care about you enough to care. Stop. Never mind. Your neighbor or coworker, right? Or even the cashier at HV or something, right? You meditate on that, you follow the same formula. Then you move on to someone that's not very likable, right? Buddhism, we don't exactly have enemies, right? But we may still have people that we don't necessarily agree with all the time or like 24/7, so we concentrate and meditate on them. And then we shift it to all sentient beings. Right? And as we develop that, and as we kind of go through that, then we start to lessen our bitterness toward people. We start to lessen the effects of you're different than me, right? Because one of the reasons why we dislike people or don't agree with people is because to us, they are different. Whether it's physical difference, sexual difference, political difference, whatever it may be, right? Because you're different, I'm not going to agree with you, or I'm not going to like you. Of course, there are multiple reasons for that, right? Other than the environment that you grew up with, or the society that you're in, the type of family you had, right? All these things were implanted within our consciousness from the day we were born. But as we get older, those ideas and those feelings and those beliefs start to become more rigid, more cemented. So it's a little bit more difficult to break them apart, right? But that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it'll take some time. But that's okay, because we have a lot of time. I mean, we don't really have a lot of time, but we have a lot of time, right? So anyway, back to the meditation. So we continue on that same formula, right? And over time, right, this is the formula for loving kindness. Whereas when we do the meditation compassion, right, we're bringing to mind someone that we know is suffering. So right now, unfortunately, we have a big example of the floods, right? And there were hundreds of people that had died, unfortunately, and hundreds more that are affected, and even more hundreds more people that are suffering because their loved ones or their friends or neighbors have passed or have gotten impacted. So we can use them because we know that they're suffering, right? We don't have to guess who's suffering in the world. Well, guess what? Everyone is suffering, right? But at least this is suffering on a big scale. And so we can use that as an example, as an unfortunate example. And put ourselves in those shoes. Because we're not affected. Yes, we feel sympathy. We feel sadness for these people, but we really don't know what they're feeling. We really don't know what they're going through. And so when we practice the meditation and compassion, again, we literally put ourselves in their shoes. We put ourselves in their skin to see and to feel and to observe what they see, feel, and observe. It's the only way we can truly try to make some impact. Because as soon as you put yourself in their shoes and see through their eyes and how they're suffering and what they're suffering for, then it becomes a little bit more clear for us as to what we can do to help. Right? And then when we move over to loving kindness, we develop a state of mind that, again, because these are strangers that we do not know, aren't related to us, aren't part of our lives at all, but they still deserve happiness. They still deserve to be free from suffering. They still deserve care and love. Just because you don't know them doesn't make them any less valuable than your own parents or siblings or children. Because the world is we're all interrelated. We're all interconnected, whether you like it or not. Right? In Buddhism, there's a saying that we're all interrelated. We're 7 generations interrelated. Meaning in a past life, I could have been your mother, or husband, or wife. I could have been a child, right? In any past 7 lives. So if you love your mother, or your wife, or husband, or child so much at that time, then why now do you not love them the same way? Yeah, they're not related to you anymore. Yeah, they're not your mother or husband or wife. But they were, or could have been in a past life. So what's the difference? So instead of seeing people that are, homeless is a good example, right? Homeless have a bad rep. But because we don't understand, right? We don't know what they're going through. We don't know how their situation came up or caused them to be homeless. Maybe some were making it up. We don't know. But the fact that we don't know does not give you the power to judge. Because what if the roles were reversed? Wouldn't you want to be helped? Oh, they're going to use this for drug money. They're going to use this for alcohol. Well, guess what? That's not your problem. That's not the act. That's not true act of giving. Because again, act of giving is what? True act of giving is what? Not expecting return. That also means that when you give money to a homeless person, your expectation isn't that they use it for usefulness. That's an expectation. Hey, I'm going to give you $5, but you need to go buy food with this. That's an expectation. I'm going to give you this money, but you have to do this or you have to do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. That's an expectation. That's not true giving. True giving is, here, I know you're suffering. I know you need help. That's it. Your job is done. What they do with that, it's not your business. The same way that if you were doing something in life, it's not someone else's business either. If you moved houses, changed jobs, broke up with someone, those details are no one's business. So then why do you expect to know the business of this homeless person? We're not that special. So don't think that we're that special. Okay, I'm going to stop there so we actually have time to meditate. But that is our practice for today. So we will practice on meditation of compassion and loving kindness, and kind of go down the list of those we love, right? We'll start with ourselves first, and then those that are closest to us, those that are why am I losing? I'm getting dementia already? Probably, right? Acquaintances, and then strangers, and then those we dislike, and then all sentient beings, right? We'll kind of follow that flow. So, any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts?
Especially in this flood situation, a lot of organizations and volunteers and some like they're collecting money and they're doing it, but I think they have expectation to raise money, which is so. Is that true giving or like a fake giving? What they're doing?
That's a good question.
Especially when so I'll give you an example. I was in doing some volunteer work and things like that. And like the churches, they say, oh, we will pay for stuff. No, we don't need anything, no food, nothing, just money. That's it. All the churches there.
That's suspicious, but anyways, beside the point.
No, we just on the
No, it's going, just like everything else we do, at least according to the Dharma, is based on intention, right? If we follow the precepts, for example, right? The golden line of how a precept is truly broken is the intention behind the breakage, right? So there's the 5 precepts of abstaining from killing or taking life, from stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants, right? Unfortunately, we probably do all those 5 things every single day. We unintentionally kill, because as you're walking to your car or as you're driving, you're going to step on things, going to run over animals, the flies splat on the windshield, right? All this is taking life. But it's unintentional because we're not going out there looking for something to run over or to hit, right? But if you are, then that's obviously a bigger karmic hit. So it is based on intention. So even raising money, if the intention truly is for that cause, right? And then all the money goes to that cause, then it's true giving. But unfortunately, what happens in a lot of these circumstances is, let me raise money, and I'm going to give 10% to this cause, right? Buy this item, and 10% of your proceeds goes to this cause. Or if anything, sometimes it doesn't go to the cause at all. You just keep the money, which is unfortunate, right? But again, because we do not know, It's also none of our business. So as long as you give with the intention of wanting to help, regardless of what they do with the money, you're still doing a positive, a wholesome action. But you can't say, unless you know for sure, with 100% accuracy, what's happening with that money, as long as your intention, you have holistic intention of giving, that's all that matters. The same way with the homeless person, right? You don't know really what they're going to do with the money, but you still care for them because they're suffering. And so you give them willingly without the expectation of what they're going to do with it. Likewise, if someone's raising money, or an organization is raising money for some cause, right? True giving is just giving without the expectation that they will give it to the cause. We hope they do, but we don't know. Very good question, though.
And the system, like, when it comes to price, just what the tax is like, the money should be distributed from like one institution or government. Why do we have to have a lot of NGOs and all these things? This kind of my fault. It's my fault.
That's not a question that I can answer. Not a question I can answer. Yeah, I don't know. Yes, ma'am. One of the statues. Depending on what version of the story you want to know. So we'll hear a lot in Buddhism of, or I mean, today I just mentioned like the deep knowing or deep listening, right? And so the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas are the saints that are kind of surrounding the statues because they follow a path of helping all those that suffer, right? And have a vow to continually be reborn in the world until all beings are free of suffering. That because of their deep listening, their ears just, they hold a lot of weight, basically, right? The more you hear, the heavier the ears get, basically. Because our saint or the bodhisattva on the far left of the Buddha Amitabha, which is also the same bodhisattva in the corner of here, Avalokiteshvara bodhisattva. Avalokiteshvara literally means one who hears the cries of the world. So he, she, it is hearing all the cries of the world. And so he, she, it is just holding down all that weight. Right?
That means seeing suffering. That means knowing the person you're talking to is suffering.
Right.
If you can hear the suffering that's going on, they might not be saying it, might not be a sound that you hear,
right?
But you're hearing it. Right?
Yep.
And so the big ears just represent that. They don't really have any meaning other than
carrying the weight of the world, almost. Yeah. Sounds like a big job, but it's not. Well, it's not carrying the weight of the world. It's knowing that the world suffers, right? Because we know that suffering exists. We know that the world suffers, right? Or I guess in better words, in life there's suffering, right? So in Buddhism, the four noble truths, the very first noble truth is the recognition that suffering exists. That life is suffering, or in life there is suffering, right? And so the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas know that there's suffering in the world. And so they use their ability to deeply listen, right? They step into the shoes of those that are suffering. And they take in all the stuff that the person is suffering, right? And they listen to them. They're like therapists. They're listening to what is causing you suffering. Because if you know why they're suffering, then you know what to do to help assuage, to help alleviate the suffering. Otherwise, you're just walking blindly in the dark. Yeah, you're suffering, but I don't really know why you're suffering. Goes with the same for us, right? We all suffer. Whether you know it or not, you suffer. Every dislike you have, every complaint you have, every thought of not wanting to do this or not wanting to do that is suffering. Anything that it goes beyond what is suffering. The non-acceptance of reality as it is suffering. So in other words, everything is suffering. But again, this goes back to what I said earlier, is true suffering is your reaction to what's going on in the world or what's going on in your life.
Can I tell my story what I thought always thought when I was sleeping?
Oh, for the ears? Go for it.
I always thought that I was probably making the story in my mind that back when we used to wear long, heavy coat, heavy jewelry, necklaces, things like that. And only people they used to get in the ears. Nobody else, like nowadays you can see the nose and all part of the body. But back then they had really heavy, solid gold. And I was hanging sometimes like hanging all the way, especially with prince and all those people. And the benefice of those over your arms were kind of makes them stretch. And they're sitting too long and generation. So eventually, in the end, I think it's kind of symbolized that this part too to the ear was the dog. So that's part. I always thought like symbol like okay, these guys suffering, that's we are suffering because we are having gold and hung that. And they were attached to the gold at one point in time, and now they are not wearing the gold. That's gone. Now they're free from that attachment. And that was my like. There's always a look for years of thought like, yeah, that's the story.
That's an interesting perspective. Could be true. I don't know. Never heard of that version, but it's interesting. Yeah. Could be. I don't know.
But it looks scientific because I just kind of like this is weird. Back up to the science. If you wear something very heavy,
Yeah.
and you will
It'll
see
stretch.
like my guy now, they are heavy. They were very heavy, like they had big gold, and they hold like them hanging down here, like here.
Yeah. True. Well, they definitely weren't wearing gauges, that's for sure. But it could be jewelry. But yeah, listening to suffering in the world is the official reason. But it's also just merely symbolic, right? Because these are representing perfect beings that are fully enlightened. And a perfect being that is fully enlightened will be able to truly listen and hear and act on all forms of suffering. And so it just symbolizes that they have the capacity, they have the ability to listen deeply and to be able to help alleviate people out of their suffering. Wonderful. So we'll go ahead and do our meditation now on loving kindness and compassion. Do a quick stretch if you need to, and then we will do a short walking meditation right afterward as well. apologize that I spoke too much and I didn't have enough time to sit down for a full session, but nonetheless, I hope everyone's more compassionate, more loving, or at least on the way, driving to your destination of Loveville, which is a real place, apparently. Did you know that? It's a city called Loveville, a little town called Loveville. Loveville. I think it's Illinois, if I remember correctly. Anyway. Say what?
We have utopia.
There we go. Better than Loveville, that's for sure. We also have Buddha. Wait, how do you even say that town? Is it Buddha? Buddha? Buddha. Buddha. Either way, names and forms don't matter. But anyway, so we're at the end of this foundation. I just realized during the last roundabout that, July, we have 3 more classes until we take a break. So I'm hoping I'll be able to finish up the last foundation of mindfulness within the next 3 classes. Actually, I have no choice, so kind of have to. Because we'll be gone for a good chunk of September, so we won't have classes until we will not have classes in September, and we'll have meditation following that. So in October, November, and December, we'll have meditation classes, but not teachings. So it'll just be classes with some quick direction of how to meditate, sitting and walking, and we'll just meditate for up to an hour or so. Because usually we have a winter retreat, meditation retreat, depending on the year, but usually the first or second weekend of December. And if I don't start classes until October, which means I would only have 4 classes, I don't think that's enough time for me to cover any subject. So I'm not going to. So we'll just sit and meditate and come aligned together to get ready for a retreat in December. And then, as usual, following the Lunar New Year, the classes will start up again. And that is it. I am way over time, so I apologize. But I hope to see everyone either tomorrow or next class or on Friday for our Sutra class at 6:30 p.m. Before we end this class, please join me in invoking Buddha's name 3 times and to transfer the merit. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.